As we've seen, the Assyrian Empire had overextended itself and was defeated by disgruntled powers. In the immediate aftermath, Babylon again emerged as the most powerful Mesopotamian state, and its king Nebuchadnezzar succeeded in conquering Jerusalem and transferring the population of Judah to Mesopotamia, continuing that Assyrian strategy of power, of displacement and relocation. Babylon's period of glory here was to be short-lived because another people, the Persians, were on the verge of creating a new empire that would be larger than even the Assyrian Empire, and that would last for more than 2 centuries. The Persians were an Indo-European speaking people, descendants of the nomads that moved into Iran from the steppe region. They were renowned as elite horsemen, and in the 6th century BCE, a Persian leader called Cyrus united the Persian tribes and led them to victory against neighboring peoples in Iran, Anatolia, and Mesopotamia. With their non-urban nomadic past, the Persians readily drew from, borrowed, and adapted existing urban traditions in the Fertile Crescent. But in one rather dramatic way, they differed from their Assyrian predecessor. The Persians presented themselves not as unrelenting and fear-inducing military juggernauts, but as the agents of peace and good order. We can read the very words of Cyrus himself in a document known as the Cyrus Cylinder, which you see here. And you can see how Cyrus presented himself not as an Assyrian-like destroyer, but as a liberator who respected the traditions of the region and protected them from those who would do them harm. He conquered Babylon, presenting himself as a benign liberator summoned by the Babylonian god Marduk to restore order against an impious Babylonian king. Cyrus was the agent of someone else's god. Likewise, Cyrus freed the tribes of Judah, which had been forcibly relocated into Mesopotamia, and he sent them home with his own blessing, calling them to rebuild their temple in Jerusalem, which the Babylonians had destroyed. The Persians respected local traditions, which could enhance support for Persian rule. There was no imposition of Persian culture on subject peoples, but these people were, in fact, tribute-paying subjects, and dissent was crushed, as we see from the rock images on the Behistun inscription, where rebellious kings were punished by the great Persian Shah, or King, Darius, who is credited with establishing the administrative foundations of the Persian Empire. This inscription was located on the road to a Persian ceremonial center, Persepolis, where foreign monarchs and envoys brought tribute to the Persian Shah. It was a warning and a reminder that Persian power, though appearing benign, was also highly effective. The Persians built roads and canals and underground water management systems called qanats, and they maintained a royal post to move messages quickly from one end of this vast empire to another. They also standardized coinage and weights and measures, all of which facilitated trade. The Shah's power emanated through the provinces known as satrapies, where relatives or trusted administrators governed, while being watched by military officers, by tax collectors, and by spies known as the eyes and ears of the king, who reported back to the Shah. The Persians projected an image of peace, tolerance, and good government that was ensured by the Persian Shah. An important part of Persian culture was the religion known as Zoroastrianism, named after the prophet Zoroaster or Zarathustra. Zoroaster taught about the goodness of the creator god called Ahura Mazda, shown here, and the problem of an evil figure called Ahriman, and the struggle between the two in which humans take part, opting to pursue the light or the darkness, to choose good or bad. And for those choices, the choices that we make in life, we face judgment afterwards, as each individual will be assessed, rewarded, or punished based on our activities in this life. Morality mattered. Not surprising, the Greeks said of the Persians that their boys were taught to ride, to shoot, and to tell the truth. This idea of an evil force that challenged the Creator God, and the idea of a final judgment, would have lasting influence. And it was from this Zoroastrian origin that such ideas likely passed into the Jewish tradition. Zoroastrian scriptures are called the Avesta, in which are liturgical texts and various hymns which are known as the Gathas, some of which you will be reading. These scriptures were passed down orally for centuries before finally being written down. The massive Persian Empire was to have an important influence on the Greeks in the West as well as on Indian civilization in the East. And Cyrus was remembered as a remarkable ruler, a model worthy of emulation by the Greeks, and remembered as a savior in the Jewish tradition, which is seen in the biblical record today. Yet later conflict with the Greeks would alter that image of the Persians in the West and refashion it into a negative image, as displayed in the movie 300, which is far from the historical record as one can get.